everything is kind of temporary. Whatever situation you're in, good or bad, don't get too high, don't get too low. Kind of accept that this is part of the journey and you don't have to go and fix everything right now, or everything is not perfect all the time. And understanding that there's an ebb and flow in life. And I think that allowed me to kind of balance myself to say, I don't need to be the best at every single thing. I need to do the best I can, but making sure that I have a balance of my life, my own nutrition, my own health.
Welcome to A Founder's Life. I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, how we pursue a more balanced and meaningful life along the way. This podcast is sponsored by Thanks, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. Email founders@thanks.com, that's THANKZ.com, with the subject line A Founder's Life, and you'll receive preferred pricing. Now, I'm excited today to be joined by Ed DeAngelis. Ed, thank you for joining. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Well, thank you for having me. My name's Ed DeAngelis. I'm CEO of EDA Contractors, Incorporated.
And do you want to talk a little bit about your journey that brought you to where you are today?
Sure.
And then a little more about what your business does.
You know, Leah, I always like this to begin when I was younger. I like to tell a paperboy story. I was a paperboy and probably about 11. And people say, why do you start at that part of your journey? Because as a founder of this company, I really believe my entrepreneurship started with that paperboy route. I had the responsibility to deliver papers on time. I had customer service where if they blew away, that was my problem. They got wet. I had to do accounting. I made money. I was able to buy things for myself. I tell you that story because, and the more papers I got, the more money I would make. And I like that. I thought that would be a great way for me to move forward. And I think that was the inspiration for me eventually. I went to college. I played soccer. I was a soccer player at a local university, St. Joe's University. And then in 1999, I decided to open up my construction company, EDA Contractors. We're a commercial, industrial, institutional company. We have about 450 employees in 3 different states, or maybe 4 right now, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and Delaware. I tell the beginning part of this story because I don't know if I would be at the spot I am today if I didn't go through that story first.
And have you ever actually worked for anyone else, or you went straight to your business?
I graduated from college, and then I went to work for another construction firm, a roofing company, and worked there for about 9 years. So no, I think any entrepreneur, you need an experience at a different firm to be able to understand what works and what doesn't work. And I think during that time, it was like my opportunity to practice like I owned my own company. I treated it like it was mine. Even though I was working for someone, it gave me an opportunity to say, well, would I do this or would I do that if I had my own company? And that was a part. So for 9 years, I worked at another. They were great. It was a great company. I had no issues with the company. I just had a spirit inside me that ultimately I wanted to start my own thing.
That's great. I always did my own thing, but you had the advantage of, as they say, making the mistakes on someone else's dime.
And I think that was the key is, I think working for someone else gave me an opportunity to make errors, also benefit them. I think I did a great job for them. I really worked hard. I really dedicated myself. I really cared about their business. But as you said, Leo, I was able to make mistakes and then go, okay, don't do that if you ever start your own thing. And I tell this story, and I think you would appreciate it. I would say for 2.5 years before I started my own business, I would dream about it. And then I started it. And up until about 5 to 7 years ago, and I've been in business for 26 years, there would be many times in a month I would wake up and go, did I start EDA? And I'm talking 15 years later. The reason I tell that story is when you have such a vision of what you want, it really becomes something that your brain just constantly thinks about. And then even when I did it, it just never really, and now it has finally, but I would say there was many times I'd wake up and go, did I start my own company or not? Because those first beginning parts of your business, I would say for me, the first 5 to 10, your brain is you're just constantly thinking about how to survive and make sure that you're successful. And that was
Yeah, when you started that story, I thought you were going to say, you had the dreams of starting the business, then you started the business, and those dreams became the nightmares of, did I actually start this?
That is, and anybody who starts a business, you have to have that resilience because it is a nightmare in the beginning. You have fear. At the time, I had 2 children. I had a wife. It is frightening, and there's so many things that happen that you just have to be prepared. And you're right. There are nightmare moments, but if you have the resilience and you have the real commitment and you're committed to this, and that's why I'm saying the dreaming meant for me, you want this. So if you want something in life, you better be ready to work through the hard times and the nightmares that are going to come. And it's okay. It just depends on how you deal with them. Don't expect a free ride in life, period. And when you start your own business or anything you do on your own, the buck ends with you. So there's not really anybody else. So every nightmare is your nightmare.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think I often say to people, aspiring entrepreneurs, if you want to make money or you want the easy life, don't become an entrepreneur. Like long term, hopefully you make more money and it's very satisfying. But in the short term, you'll probably make more money working for someone else.
No, Leo, you hit it right on the head. People say to me, oh, I want to start my own business. Oh, that's great. Why? Because I want to have freedom. I want to have my own time. I want to have my own free time. Okay, you'll be able to work 24 hours. If you think going into your own business is to give you free time, you got 10 years before you find free time. Your time is the business. It's like saying, I want free time. Let me have children. What? You're not going to get more free time when you have children. You're looking for something different. That's what it's about.
Yeah, because people are looking at a successful entrepreneur saying, that's what I want. Yeah, but it took a lot to become that successful entrepreneur.
Isn't that the same as, Leo? Yeah, because you're a fitness person. Oh, I want to look like that person. Well, what do you think? They woke up, took a pill, and all of a sudden they're in great shape? It takes a lot of pain, dedication, commitment, desire. You have to want to do this. And if you want just the easy life, then you're looking for the wrong. And I don't. I want a more fulfilling life, not an easy life.
Yes, I think that's the point. I think you can always read David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, if you want to see what it takes, if you're determined.
Yes, yeah, that's what I mean. And I think people have shown through history that we are resilient if we put our mind to it. And I think entrepreneurship is about resiliency and commitment and understanding that there's going to be peaks and valleys. And if you're just only looking for the peaks, then you're going to be in trouble. You got to be ready for the valleys.
Yeah, you gotta, in a form, be prepared to run on the broken legs. Now, I have no actual interest in running on broken legs, but there is the equivalence in business.
There is no doubt. I mean, I think you're right. Look, I'm not looking to make my life tougher. But if you're in anything that's a challenge, sports, business, parenting, life, there's friction that happens because to get to a place where you are working with people, relationships, there's friction in there. Business, money creates friction. Those relationships a lot of times break up because of the friction of money. So if you can't handle the friction of money and time, then you're really not looking for the type of life that I'm looking for. And I think any founder or entrepreneur really must accept the fact that that's part of the gig.
Yeah, it's very true. There's many months over the years where the staff have all been paid and I haven't. That's the nature of the up and down journey, and you're working hard, and there's times that you're not.
Look, there's an upside and a downside.
Definitely. And talking about family, how does family look for you?
So I have a wife who I've been with since we're high school sweethearts. So we're still together, which I'm very proud. We just celebrated 30 years. I have a 30-year-old son who's in the business. I have a 27-year-old son who's in the business. And I have a 24-year-old daughter who currently is a nurse in Boston. I have 2 grandchildren. And I just had 2 recent grandchildren, a 5-month-old little boy and a 7-month-old little girl.
Lovely.
So I'm pretty excited. It's fun times.
And so the 2 who are in the business, I assume, live locally?
Yes, they live locally. So they live locally and again, they have it's another thing that I think is my philosophy. Let me be very clear. They have a long way to go before they can take any kind of opportunity here. They have to go through the journey. I don't think we just talked about it. Part of resiliency is created through going through struggles. They have a long way to go before they be able to take this seat. And I don't mean that arrogantly. I just mean that I had to go through a lot to get here. And my resilience is based on my experience. And just because you have my last name doesn't mean that you're not going to be thrown. thrown in here, and because I love them, I don't want to see them get hurt. And I think this is a tough business. Any entrepreneur knows it's a tough business. So you want to prepare them by letting them practice for sure.
Makes sense. And how does health look for you? Whether that be nutrition, fitness, sleep, mental health, physical health, how do you?
I'm a big believer of breathing, meditation. My emotional intelligence is based on my ability to focus and breathe and really calm myself. COVID really messed me up when it came from working out. I used to work out every morning, 5:00 in the morning. I got off that train, and I think it's another thing that I want to continue to do because I really enjoy the endorphins and the serotonin hit that I get. And I think that's an important part for any entrepreneur is you must be healthy, but mental health sometimes has to be very selfish, where you have to care for yourself both nutritionally and fitness wise to be able to be balanced. And some of that way for me is through some meditation, through reading and actual meditation where I can calm myself and get my heart rate down.
Excellent. And what do you like to do for fun?
I do love the beach. I'm a beach person. I love to go to the beach and read. That's my favorite. I like to travel. We just got back from Paris, my wife and I. I really love my business. And then people say, well, I like coming in every day. I like seeing people. I like building things. I like being in the mix. It's different than when it was in those first 10 years. Those first 10 years were a drag. But I enjoy, I used to like golf. I don't golf as much, but I love sports. So I love watching soccer, football, whatever part of the world you're in. I'm a big sports fan. I go to plenty of sporting events. I just like being around people too. I'm very, I think I'm social. I tell people all the time, and I don't know how you feel the same. I like to be alone and with a lot of people. Makes no sense, but I need my alone time. And then I like to be around people.
Makes sense. You like your own company, but you're also social.
Right. That's what it is. I like to be in my own space. It gives me to recharge my batteries. And then when I'm in the social, but I also like to be around people because I think life is only, the benefit of life is being with people and building. Part of being an entrepreneur, the part that I love the most is building relationships with people. Sure, it's difficult when you have to let people go or when people leave for whatever reasons. But the joy is new people come in and there's a new experience. I love the diversity of experiences and meeting new people. And it just gives me a different perspective on life.
And how do you lead a balanced life? Meaning that sort of overall balance, no one's permanently in balance, but the overall balance across these different aspects.
It took me a while. It took me until probably 2010. So probably maybe 11 to 12 years, anywhere from 10 to 12, I was not balanced. I was work, family, and I was losing my mind. I mean, I was grinding to the ultimate degree. The thing that really helped me is to really appreciate that everything is kind of temporary. Whatever situation you're in, good or bad, don't get too high, don't get too low. Kind of accept that this is part of the journey and you don't have to go and fix everything right now, or everything is not perfect all the time. And understanding that there's an ebb and flow in life. And I think that allowed me to kind of balance myself to say, I don't need to be the best at every single thing. I need to do the best I can, but making sure that I have a balance of my life, my own nutrition, my own health, and I wasn't sleeping. You really can get yourself in. And, I got to a point in my career where I had a breakdown where I could not physically get off the floor because I had worked myself to the bone. And that's just not a healthy place to be. It doesn't benefit my family. It doesn't benefit the people at this company. I think this company has grown so much more and so much healthier when I got healthier. And it really helped me.
You found the balance. And what for you has been a pivotal moment in your life?
Look, that's a difficult thing to speak to. Look, I think one of the most pivotal things for me is I was born in the United States with two parents who raised me. And the reason I say that's a pivotal part is I was born in a country where there was an opportunity for me. My grandfather was Irish immigrant. I was able to get here. And then the pivotal parts of my life as I go through, really, there's so many of them, Leo, that I would love to be able to point to one, but I don't think I can. And when it comes to my career, the pivotal point was the time I broke down and then realized that for me to go forward, I got to do it in a much healthier way. And then I saw so much more success. There's this false narrative that you have to grind yourself to the bone. You have to run a marathon every day. And even marathon runners, which I'm not a marathon runner, know that they never run the marathon. They train less than the marathon, but they have to train and do it in segments. They don't go out and say, let me run 26 miles today. And I think life is the same way. And you might know better than me because I know you're a fitness guru, so you might have a better idea of that.
It's actually true. It's interesting. When I started running marathons, one of the things that I hadn't really realized is you actually don't run like a traditional program. So there's a few different programs out there, but a very traditional program. Your longest run is probably an 18-mile run.
That's
and a
great.
marathon is 26.2-mile run. And even the most I've ever seen was a program that did a 22-mile run.
Right.
And even that, you're still only doing one. Maybe on your training plan, you've got, an 18-mile, a 16-mile, and the rest are all like 14 and under. It's not about the number of long runs. It's a small number of really long runs, and you do them slow. That's the other counterintuitive thing.
I think business is the same, Leah. I think business is the same. If you're trying to run a marathon in the first day, you're not going to make it. And what I needed to learn how to do it in spurts and then train the same way. And then every once in a while, I needed to run the marathon, but I was more prepared. But you can't do it every single day. You have to. So when you ask about balance, it's about really recognizing that you have limits. And look, I care about my family tremendously. I care about my own health. I don't think I'm good to anybody if I'm, that whole saying, if a plane's going down and your children and your wife are with you or your partner is with you, you're supposed to get the oxygen for yourself first because you're of no help to them if you pass out trying to give them the oxygen. So I feel like that's the same way as it relates. I feel not a responsibility to make sure that I try to keep myself as balanced as possible because no one wants a business owner run around screaming and yelling, screaming at everybody, stressed out all the time. I shouldn't be whistling down the hall, but I should definitely not be running around my hair on fire. I don't think it helped. I did that before because I was like, this is the only way to go. I got to push. I did that with my children. And, at one point they said, Dad, shut up. Like you're too intense. And I was. And then you learn. And that's the point. You learn from, what you learn from most of the time? Mistakes.
I think the second, or for you, second, maybe and third child are in some ways probably a bit more chilled in the fact that you're more chilled. Like the first child, you're worried that everything, and then I've only had two children, but, by the second one, you're like, they don't break. It's okay. You can relax.
I was way better with number 2 and 3. And I think that says something about life. We sometimes need some more time. And I think it's like running a marathon. You need to slowly run this marathon of life. I have a saying for my business philosophy, humanity as a strategy. Just remember that everybody here is a human. And if you can strategically come up with ways to embrace those humans, they will then you'll get the most out of them. And I'm going to use the marathon analogy. Don't have them run marathons. Have them run 10 miles, 8 miles. What can they handle? And each human's different, and push them based on how much they can handle and push them into spots. Now, if they can't run, well, then they might not be able to work for you because they really can't, they just don't want to run. Well, you have to want to do this. And then you also have some skill.
And what's one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
I think the most important aspect for a new entrepreneur is just be 100% committed. Do not think you can do it half-assed, though. I just told you be balanced. But at the same time, if you're going to go do something, I think the only way to do it is jump in and then really try to make sure. If you're going to run a marathon, run a marathon. Train for it and then run it. Don't kind of do it. You got to be ready for whatever it is. I don't care what business you're in, but you can't halfway do it. I have to admit, for me, I had money. I had a home. I pushed it all in when I went into business because I knew if I didn't push it all in, I would have that little bit of difference. And I think the difference between success and failure is this big. I think it's a more of a 50-yard dash. The success, failure, and to be third place and first place or fourth place and first place is a half a second. I think business entrepreneurs, I'm fortunate enough that I've been able to be successful, but I also recognize that the chances of not making it sometimes are very small. So I would just say be committed, just be ready. I prepared. I wanted this. That's another thing. Do you want this for the right reasons? Why do you want it? You want to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with an entrepreneur who wants to make money. But are you ready to take the time and effort? Do you have some balance? Do you have a family? Do you have something else to keep you? Do you have your nutrition? Do you have your fitness? You have to have something else to give you some balance, because you got to be fully committed when it comes to whatever you're looking to do.
Well, I love that. That's some great advice. Thank you, Ed.
You're
And
welcome.
how can people find you?
So they can go to my LinkedIn page, Ed DeAngelis, EDA Contractors. They can go to edacontractors.com, our website. I have a tremendous amount of writings I do on LinkedIn about my business philosophy, some of the things I've gone through. A lot of them might be different. Again, I'm a construction business, but I like to think of myself like you as just an entrepreneur, and I love entrepreneurs. So if they want to reach out to me, please reach out. I'm happy to give any of my own recommendations on what it took for me to get to where I am right now, which I'm very proud. I'm not done yet. So tell my kids, I'm not leaving this seat anytime soon.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and please leave a review.